الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونتوب إليه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. Respected elders, dear sisters and dear brothers, one of the things I try to do during the summer months when I design the curriculum for what we do for the Friday services, I attempt to tune the themes towards the younger audiences because we get deprived of their presence for the entire school year, obviously, when the Friday comes in the middle of their school day. But when they come to the masjid here, we attempt to find ways to help, inshallah, find things that are very relevant and engaging. That are very relevant and engaging, so we can ensure that our exercises of education are always inclusive of everyone, inshallah ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, that in the spirit of our religion, and it is actually a fiqhi matter, that everybody who's under 40 is considered to be young in Islam, so nobody is excluded by that rule. So I think we'll be all okay with the benefit of the themes that we will be covering, inshallah ta'ala, today. So the theme that I thought I would pick, which is quite relevant and quite important, is one of the things that we have a very, very hard time doing in our religion as we think about our future, is that there are some very fundamental principles that sometimes we forget. Books do not raise people. Men raise boys, women raise girls. That's a very, very, very important principle that sometimes in our communities we mess up this and we mix up things a lot. Man could disappear from the picture and the responsibility of raising boys is discharged to women. Sometimes we kind of outsource parenting completely by throwing it over the fence to a Sunday school or to whatever it is that goes out there, and we forget the criticality of the responsibilities we have to our very close ones, for which we are directly accountable. And as these things develop and they are not taken care of very seriously, you can imagine that it causes rifts and tensions. And family rifts and tensions can be extremely toxic and very, very difficult to manage. I'm not having any guesswork here. I'm not a specialist in the field, but I am a student in the Quran. And the Quran is our best guide to illustrate for us what I call the two bookends, the two extremes of family relationships that have gone incredibly sour, and family relationships that have become a model that the Quran has put in front of us to inspire us. So let's start with the first one that has gone extremely sour and extremely bad. And that is the tension between Ibrahim alayhi salam and his father Azara. So in Surah Maryam, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, the conflict between the two of them came to a point what it could no longer be resolved by any means of conversation or healing. So it became a catastrophic relationship that ended up with a total breakup. So Ibrahim turns to his son and says, قال أراغب أنت عن آلهتي يا إبراهيم? Are you here standing in defiance of my gods, O Ibrahim? لئن لم تنتهي, if you don't stop from doing this, I'm going to do the following things to you. لأرجمنك وهجرني مليا. I will stone you and I want to disown you and completely ask you to get out of my face forever. That clearly, والعياذ بالله, is the place that no one wants to go to. Because once a relationship between young and senior gets into an impasse where the only language we can hold with one another is either I'm going to disown you, or we are never going to talk again, or there is nothing to build between us, then that's a catastrophic loss on all sides that is not good. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala holds this example for us on one end, so we know what we shouldn't do. Because that's the teaching of the Quran, is always tarhib wa targhib. So there is an element that admonishes, that says, this is a bad thing, and you should not model that, and this is a good thing, and we invite you to model that. So now we go to the other book end, and the exemplar of it is Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. So Sayyidina Yusuf has gone through a family relationship that was as traumatic as that of Ibrahim. But it wasn't with his father, Yaqub, it was with his brothers. But it still led to some things that are pretty horrible and nasty, where brothers conspired against a brother in order to take him out. I mean, you talk about intensity, talk about horror. That's pretty bad. We are not talking about a verbal disagreement. We are not talking about a disagreement on inheritance. We are talking about one party feeling that the other party do not any longer have the right to live, and actually take steps towards that. Yet, subhanAllah, despite the horror, despite the crime, despite the premeditated harm that the brothers of Yusuf engaged in, at the end of Surah Yusuf, Yusuf comes back and demonstrates to us what does it mean to be the younger one into a family, not the eldest, not the most senior, not the most influential, to be the youngest one in a family, but still have the biggest heart. Be the smallest, but still have the biggest heart. To have a heart that has room for everybody in it. So he says, and this is Allah, because he admired Yusuf so much that he spoke with him, he spoke through him with admiration. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, he said, وَرَفَعَ أَبَوَيْهِ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. Allah is saying, and Yusuf rose his parents and elevated them on the throne. وَخَرُّوا لَهُ سُجَّدًا. When the parents were raised on the throne, they threw themselves in prostration to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for having elevated their status and brought them to this. And the throne here is a proximity of two things. The first one is the elevation. They came from al-Badw and they were raised to that level. And the second one is the proximity. They were separated from their son and now they were brought back as a family so they can be a family together and be very close to one another. And so now Yusuf speaks. وقال يا أبتي هذا تأويل رؤياي من قبل. Oh my father, my dream and my vision has come true. قد جعلها ربي حقا. Indeed, it was a vision. It wasn't some sort of heavy meal after midnight and I just hallucinated throughout the night. It was a vision that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought to reality. وقد أحسن بي. And my Lord who has brought these circumstances to me has treated me with excellence. إذ أخرجني من السجن. He has granted me the fruit of freedom. وجاء بكم من البدو. And he has saved you and brought you out from the rural condition in which you were to come and be part of the urban setting in which I am. That's a transfer of prosperity and wealth from poverty, from dependence, harsh climate, to comfort, living in the household of a king, of an authority, having things brought to you in ease. So basically, as of today, you are living with me on easy street. And I thank my Lord for having done that. But Yusuf doesn't forget that this is something that came after very hard tribulation. من بعد أن نزغ الشيطان بيني وبين إخوتي. After the shaitan has caused a terrible rift between me and my brothers. إن ربي للطيف لما يشاء. Verily, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very gentle for that he wishes. إنه هو العليم الحكيم. And verily, He's the one who is all-knowing and all-wise. So you can see that for all of us, parents, spouses, brothers, sisters, older and young, to be very candid, to put it more or less a little bit in difficult words, but very reflective of the truth, we all sit on this spectrum. Some of us are closer to the Yusuf condition, some are closer to the Ibrahim condition, and many of us fall in between these two things as we struggle with the tribulations and the difficulties of our lives. And so we can either make a choice to suffer the alienation of Ibrahim and then we break relationships or bridges, or benefit from the example of Musa and of Yusuf and bring together the blessings of having relationships that are very rewarding, very empowering, very loving, and that bring about tranquility and wonderful things and make life worth living. But here is the thing. The one thing I have learned with my life, or the little gray hair that stayed on my head, you cannot do this alone. This is a team sport. Everybody has to participate. The senior and the young, the one in the middle, the close and the far away. We have to all work together on this. There isn't anybody, this mentality that exists in Muslim community and the Muslim Ummah in general, to be very candid about it, that there is always a za'im out there that can come to save the day. We gotta stop thinking this way. Bad idea, very bad idea. There is no secret za'im that has been empowered with all kinds of things that can come on a white horse and save everybody. The Prophet ﷺ was the only one who had that benefit, and he's gone. The responsibility now is for everybody to roll up the sleeves, everybody to bleed, and everybody to hurt, and everybody to cry, and then we can make it together if every one of us makes a little contribution, and all of the small contributions together become a tidal wave that changes things in our families, in our communities, and in our ummah. Can I ask you, brothers and sisters, inshallah, in the spirit of sharing, we cannot leave our brothers standing up. If you could squeeze a little bit and just make some room, inshallah, or move to your right, inshallah, or fill up some of the empty spots so we can make room for them, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Barakallahu feek. So inshallah ta'ala, for the balance of the time, and obviously it's very little time left for us, just a couple minutes to close this Friday sermon today, inshallah. I'm going to propose few things. If we can cover the majority of them with the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that's wonderful. And if we fall short, we will have other, inshallah, sermons in which we can cover the balance. So I propose that we take some very concrete steps as the young who are in this audience and who should be listening to this very actively, and the not so young who are in this audience and who also have a hand in the process of healing and repairing, where we can all take from this advice to the extent that we can, and you can scoop from it whatever you think you have an appetite for, so we can put that in action, inshallah, and help one another bring really the foundation of our future. I'll tell you something, to just be very, very clear about where the world is going. We cannot put our house in order, we don't have a future. We're done. I mean, very often I go to this very elaborate like Islamic conventions and lectures and whatnot, and the people are on the podium extremely passionate about what we need to do to go fix the world. And you can't fix your own home with 4 people in it. I don't think you qualify to go fix the world. So let's just take it 100 notches down and start with the basics. And the basics is for every one of us to do what we can to fix what we can. And then we got something to offer to the rest of the world. Then we got something to do. And alhamdulillah, we have some tools. We can do some things wonderful, which is what I'm going to recommend. So step 1, what I think is very, very important in any conversation, if we cannot convince each other within a family or within a community, that we have a common purpose, we don't have a starting point. You can't have people in the same boat and they are rowing. One of them wants to row north and the other one wants to row south. The only certainty we will achieve with that is that the boat will go nowhere. So we got to figure out a way to agree on where we're going together. My guide and my personal experience has always been a very, very, very short surah in the Quran. It's surah 103, called Surah Al-Asr, and it's an incredibly powerful thing. It has 3 verses, just not very complicated. That's the beauty of the Quran. It's never very complicated because it talks universally to all mankind. It has like 3 tiny little verses, and they mean the world. First one, بَدْعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ وَالْعَصْرِ. We are coming upon time. Allah has an opinion about this time that we're going to come upon. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. This is not going to go well. We're going to hit some rough patches. There will be storms ahead. There will be all kinds of things that are very challenging. So what are we going to do? إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. You want to get the recipe to shelter yourself and your family from that storm? Get this purpose that's called be a believer, do what's good, enjoying and pass on the heritage of truth, and then know that for you to succeed, you have to be patient and resilient. So very, very simple. Like, it's not complicated. It's I actually call Surah Al-Asr the constitution for mankind. So if you really wanted the recipe that will make all of mankind successful, and if everybody could interpret this in their tradition, then we all have something to go by, because this purpose is universal. The second one is that being born in a family and living in a family is not a prison sentence. It's a privilege, it's an honor to carry the name of your father. It's a privilege and an honor to carry the name of your mother. Because some of us, the way we acquired our names was not given. If I had the time, I would tell you my own story of how my name came to be. And it's an unbelievable privilege and honor to have that name. So it's quite important to understand that your name is a currency. It's a treasure that you have to honor and take very seriously and pass on as a heirloom from one generation to the other. And I love the way that Malik ibn Dinar has represented this beautiful thing about the rahmah that exists in the name, that exists into the relationship that human beings have with one another. He says, Masakinu ahlu dunya, verily woe unto the people of this life that are going to exit as losers. خرجوا منها وما ذاقوا أطيب ما فيها. They have left this life and they have not tasted the most amazing fruit that's in it. So his students were close to him. And they asked the following question. And by the way, if you are young in the audience and the idea that didn't cross your mind that you did not want to ask the same question, then you're not listening. So if you have a phone in your hand, put the phone down. If you are chatting with your friend, stop the chatting and pay attention. So the students turned to him as his teacher, as their teacher, and they asked him the question. قيل وما أطيب ما فيها قال معرفة الله عز وجل, the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ومحبته, and the love that you have to have for him. Because if the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes the foundation between you and your spouse, if the love of subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes the foundation between you and your children and you and your brother, you and your sister, then some amazing things are going to happen. What are these amazing things? Every time you see something in them, you will see the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in them. And that will create something that will last forever and be much like the model of what Yusuf saw in his brothers and in his parents. The third one that I think is extremely important, one of the things that I noticed very often, for example, with the young people today, peer pressure, the trends from outside and whatnot, you can pick a lot from the way that two people talk to each other. So if you are a young person in the audience today, I'm going to give you an assignment, and my hope and prayer, which I'll pray for you inshallah ta'ala, that as of today, what you are going to hear should transform the rest of your life. So if you catch yourself standing in front of your parents when your parents are talking to you, and either you are rolling your eyes or bobbing your head or trying to constantly find a way to argue against them or whatnot, take a deep breath, think again, take that idea, go to the Boston Harbor and throw it away. Because it's not a good idea. Why? It's because one of the fundamental criteria for the requirements of relationships that are very successful is something that is called al-rifq. So let me share a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ with you, and you can find it in Sahih al-Bukhari, in Kitab al-Mufrad. And it's an unbelievable hadith, quite frankly. Unbelievable hadith. I wish we would make it a bumper sticker and we would give it and put it onto the book notes of every child and on every parent. عن جرير بن عبد الله قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من يحرم الرفق يحرم الخير. من يحرم الرفق يحرم الخير. Whoever is denied compassion is denied all good. Subhanallah al-Adim. Whoever is denied compassion, if you do not cultivate the gift of compassion within yourself, then it's not that you just lost a part of your ethical portfolio and composition. You've lost all good. I think that's something in of itself to just be very, very careful with on what is it that we are trading when we are not paying attention to some of the beautiful teachings of this religion. The next one on two, inshallah, and we'll close on those on which we have a little bit of time, inshallah, to close them, is one extremely, extremely important and critical skill. Subhanallah, there is this unbelievable thing about the Quran and how it speaks about the things that it considers extremely important. There's this big, fashionable two words that people have put together, and you have to go to some place where somebody has paid a consultant in order for you to be in the audience, and maybe yourself, you have to go behind the paywall before you can attend something and hear about this new teaching. That's called active listening. Active listening. What is that? Like, what's this fashion? What's this big new fad? Is this idea that supposedly, when you listen, you cannot check out. You cannot be with your body inside the audience, but everything about you is actually outside the room. One part of your brain is trying to add the math, and another part of your brain is trying to catch up on all of the things you need to do, and another part of your brain, for those who have that addiction, you cannot stop for 1 second checking the feed on social media, whatever the case is. But everybody is not there, kind of thing is the primary indictment. Subhanallah al-Azim, the Quran has a position on this. In Surah Al-A'raf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تَرْحَمُونَ. When the Quran is being enunciated in your midst, hear it. And why do you need the second verb? Why is it وَأَنصِتُوا? Why do you need the second verb as a confirmation? That the prerequisite for engagement with the Quran, it's not sufficient that you should drown the noise and listen to it. You have to engage in active listening of the Quran in order to take the benefits from it. Because that's how you show respect towards the Quran. So what do you think is the single most important complaint that people hear always from one another when a relationship breaks? He doesn't listen to me. She doesn't listen to me. When I talk to them, it's like I'm talking to a wall. Can you imagine the improvement that we are likely to cause if all of us, that's my point earlier, if all of us take very serious steps and responsibility in saying, I have a responsibility towards this, and I'm going to pledge that I'm going to start paying attention to active listening. Subhanallah al-Azim, some of the Sahaba in the manaqib that the scholars describe, they say when they were with the Prophet ﷺ and they used to talk to him, and the Prophet ﷺ would listen and pay attention to them, they used to say, we used to feel like we were the most important thing in the world. Why? Did he tell them? No. Why? Because they felt that when they talked, they were listened to. We're talking about a man who was trying to reform humanity. And yet, when somebody came to him, he puts the whole world on hold and actively listens to the person. A sign of incredible respect, humility, care, and love for the person you work with. That's my advice before the last, inshallah ta'ala, as we have to close and come to the end. The conclusion of all of this is to, inshallah, bring it home with one final teaching from the Prophet ﷺ. I always find his teaching not just amazing or inspiring or profound or something like this. I find them transformative. If you just out of respect for him, when you hear one of his hadiths, like shut down the world outside, completely outside. A lot of people who are into golf will always tell you this about the mastery of golf players. They have the ability that when they look at some hole that sits hundreds and hundreds of yards away, they can, while they are looking at the scenery, they can ignore the entire scenery. They look at it, but they can't see it. But they see just the objective of where they are trying to go. And that's the relationship that we have to have with the Sunnah. So we are going to try that example, inshallah, on one of these hadiths that the Prophet ﷺ has done, that has been reported to us. And Abdullah ibn Salam, radiallahu ta'ala, and قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, this is the hadith that he said when the Prophet ﷺ entered in Medina for the first time ever. You can call this the very first public speech that the Prophet ﷺ gave in Medina, the first time ever that he had an audience listening to him as soon as he arrived. The whole world has been waiting for you. The whole world has been waiting for you. And they are waiting and hanging at every word that's going to come from your mouth, and you are going to arrive to that community, and you are going to say something that will last forever. What do you think you are going to choose? Try to do this exercise in your head for about 5 seconds. What do you think are the ideas that are going to cross your mind where you are going to speak for posterity forever in front of your audience, in front of you, all of the audiences that will come until the day of judgment, and these words that are going to come for you are going to be imprinted and engraved on people's hearts and minds, not simply those who are in front of you, generations and strangers and on and on and on and on forever. That's an unbelievably difficult thing to do. That is just an unbelievably intimidating thing to do. And the Prophet ﷺ breaks through it with the following words. Ya ayyuhan nas, O people,
أفشوا السلام وصلوا الأرحام وأطعموا الطعام وصلوا بالليل والناس نيام. So he puts in these four tiny sentences one after the other after he calls them to their attention, O people. So what are these things? Afshu salam, spread peace amongst you. Second injunction, wasilul arham. Strive to build relationships with your kin and folk. What do you think? Why do you think that is? Why that order from the Prophet ﷺ? It's the point they made at the beginning of the khutbah. Without it, we don't have a foundation. We're going nowhere. Without it, we're going nowhere. And that's exactly what the Prophet ﷺ has advised in this. So in conclusion, for those of you who are young in this audience, I have to salute you. There is something amazing about Muslims. You spend your time learning about this religion, and may Allah bless your time. And you spend your time sharpening your identity, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you a proud Muslim. And you spend your time preparing for the future, and may Allah give you tawfiq to go towards that future. But the young Muslim is also a very smart Muslim. You decide to not get involved in bad things, and may Allah protect you as long as you keep doing this. But then you go to the gym, and you are trying to build stamina and muscle, and you are creating yourself to be healthy in both spirit, mind, and body. How about if I give you a recipe today that will make your life longer? That should interest a lot of people. I mean, there are doctors, if you go to them and they prescribe some sort of vegetarian diet and they ask you to stop eating red meat, they will make a promise to you that your life will be longer by about 10 years. It's a promise they cannot hold, but they will make that promise. How about if that promise comes from the Prophet ﷺ for your life to go younger? So here goes the hadith. قال أنس بن مالك أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من أحب أن يبسط له في رزقه وينسأ له في أثره فليصل رحمه. صدق رسول الله. The Prophet ﷺ roughly translated this hadith says, whoever loves that he be granted more wealth and that his life will be prolonged, then he should keep good relationship with his family. If you are young here today, a beautiful little sister, a beautiful little brother, and you take this hadith to heart, you actually have learned one of the single most important lessons of your life. Take it away, lock it in your heart, and throw away the keys, because that's one of the most valuable treasures ever. By just maintaining a beautiful relationship with your parents, your life is likely to be protected, healthy, and live longer. سبحان الله العظيم. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فاستغفر. الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا دينا إلا قضيته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا مبتلا إلا عافيته ولا ضالا إلا هديته ولا غائبا إلا رددته ولا مظلوما إلا نصرته ولا أسيرا إلا فككته ولا ميتا إلا رحمته. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
استووا واعتدلوا. Please make room for your brothers inshallah and accommodate them and squeeze the rows as much as you can. Please make room for your brothers inshallah. May Allah bless you. And make room for you in Jannah inshallah ta'ala. Barakallahu fikum. Allahu Akbar. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والسماء والطارق وما أدراك ما الطارق النجم الثاقب إن كل نفس لما عليها حافظ فلينظر الإنسان مما خلق من ماء دافق يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب إنه على رجعه لقادر يوم تبلى السرائر فما له من قوة ولا ناصر والسماء ذات الرجع والأرض ذات الصدى إنه لقول فصل وما هو بالهزل إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا فمهل الكافرين أمهلهم رويدا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum. Quick announcement, just couple minutes, please. Election is around the corner. My name is Ihab Hilali. I work with the IDG Machinists Union. Been driving for Uber, Lyft, and for many years. We have a question in the ballot November 5th. Question number 3 about rideshare driver justice. So drivers, they do Uber and Lyft, they have been struggling in their job, and we want our community, everybody registered to vote in Massachusetts to vote yes in question number 3. This is the only question in 50 states to give the Uber and Lyft drivers the opportunity to have a union and collective bargain to be protected, respected in their job. And we're here just to reach the community. Every voters registered to vote, please. I have 2 volunteers. We do have flyers with us about this question in the ballot number 3. Mazhar and Umar will be in the doors handing flyers. We just need your name, your phone number, your zip code, so we can take tracking for voters and drivers in the states. So if there is 4 million people that voted, if we get 2,000,001 yes, we will have the fairest union for Uber and Lyft drivers in the country. So our question is just the fairest in 50 states. So please, we're making history and we need the support for the community. If you are registered to vote, please your name, your phone number, zip code. If you are drivers, we need your names too as well. If you can volunteer. Jazakumullah khair.